Hello. Welcome back to another episode of whatever you want to call it. My thoughts, my topics, whatever's on the top of my mind, usually. But today I'm going to answer the questions on the Q&A that I made about a week ago. I do a Q&A maybe once a year, but I did one and I called it Politics Edition, and I guess it's been like 9 days. So I gave ample time for people to ask questions if they had any final questions. I'm sorry if you missed it. I'm going to do my best to answer these questions with as much honesty and fairness and trying to keep my personal bias as out of it as much as possible. However, it's going to seep in because naturally I feel the way I do about topics. So take it with a grain of salt. And I think we can all get along on these things if we're willing to hear each other out. But I guess by making it what I called a political edition, probably people only ask political related questions, but people asked for it, so I'm going to answer. And the first question that I have on here is, have you read Breakfast of Champions or Goodbye Blue Monday? No, I have not read those books. Do you remember the Michael Donaghy posters at the laundromat? No, I do not. So to answer both of those questions, no, I do not recall those things. But I definitely am an 80s and 90s child. I just probably grew up in different cultural circumstances than yourself, naturally. So the next, Ruben says he doesn't have questions, but good luck. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm answering all these questions in order. So if you want to know, on the video I made last week, the Q&A, all of the comments, at least in the order that I have them on here, are the order I'm answering them in. The next one looks like it has a few parts, and I haven't really prepped much for these, but I did read through them just to make sure I was aware of what they were asking. This is from My Inner Dialogues. My Inner Dialogues asks, do you believe every person is a mirror of you? I believe that there are certain people that I dislike, admire, and my mind fixates on them because they are mirrors of myself, shadow. Is everyone a mirror of your inner world? Or do some people have their own character, quote, defects, unquote, that have nothing to do with who you are? I read that question a couple of times, and I was trying to figure out exactly how to answer it because I'm not sure if I get the question in the way it was intended. But I understand seeing reflections in other people, especially as far as what many would call projections. We project our insecurities onto other people. In other words, if a person runs around screaming that everyone around them is physically abusive, that means one of two things. Either A, they were abused, or B, they are an abuser. If a person accuses everyone around them of being corrupt, then either they're a person who has been strongly affected by corruption in a negative way, or they are a person who rips people off and therefore is obsessed in pointing out that flaw in other people who he's in competition with. Narcissists will call out narcissists, for example, for being narcissistic. And no, I'm more narcissistic than you. I've always loved the joke of, I'm so much more humble than you. I'm more humble than anyone. And I think I recall somebody saying something to that effect, and it made me laugh. It definitely did. So, sorry, back to the question. I believe every person is a mirror of us only in the sense that we're all connected by that circuit, that human circuit. So we are constantly in connection in some etherical way we can't understand. That's my belief anyway. That it's what people might call the sixth sense. It's the way that twins know when somebody died, or people have crazy dreams the night that something happens that's related to them. Like my wife having, the only time she ever woke up like panicking from a dream was on the morning of September 11th, 2001, freaking out about her nephew being stuck somewhere in like a building or something. It was weird shit happens, you know. We are connected in ways we don't understand. And that said, I believe that everyone is a mirror of us in that way, but also, like I said, that kind of metaphoric way of we see things, well, the projection aspect, first of all. We see the things that we see in other people that we point out, we see that because we recognize it. You don't recognize a thief or a cheater as easily as an average person unless you have come to recognize a thief and a cheater. This is why they hire experts to help catch hackers, thieves, abusers, murderers, serial killers, people who have actually experienced this, because they are the ones in the mindset to do something like that or think that way. So if we see something in somebody else, often it's because we recognize it because we know it in ourselves. In that way, there's a little bit of a mirror to everyone. As far as the defects, I don't believe in defects. I believe in only things. I mean, I guess it's important. I realize language is important. Defect in the sense of something being wrong, but it's all part of the puzzle. Like the improvement comes on recognizing what's not working. So I don't know how to answer that part, the defect aspect. Number two, the question is, what is the best psychedelic you've taken? For me, it's got to be mushrooms. It's on par with DMT and ayahuasca with a slower and gentler come up. First off, I'll make it clear I am a psychonaut, for those who don't know already. Yes, I have tried most psychedelics. I have to this day not taken ayahuasca, but I started out early taking acid in my teen years and took a lot of it. And discovered mushrooms a few years later. Had many great experiences learning who I am and watching sunrises from the train bridge, just tripping balls, taking way too much. This was back in the early 90s when acid was plentiful in Portland and cheap, and it was strong. So we'd take 3, 5, whatever, 6. But eventually I took too many. I took a 6 Felix, the cat, they called it. The guy warned me. I knew better, but it was cheap. It was like 6 for $10, so I took too much, tripped too hard. Didn't do it for years, but I met my wife, and after that I eventually kind of eased back into acid. But beyond that, I'd taken DMT in my early 20s, trying it with a friend. That was an interesting experience. Then I tried, my friend he was kind of a chemist. He made mescaline citrate, and I took mescaline. Then I went to Bonnaroo and took a good dose there and watched the Beastie Boys and play Right Before Fish, and just had this crazy transcendental experience on mescaline, which, by the way, lasts a long time. And over the years, then I started going to a Burning Man event, Soak, was introduced to another guy who had DMT, really strong stuff, and then started getting back into the scene again, and basically access to anything. All the psychedelics, the experiences I've had have been just transcendental and amazing, and I don't forget them. But about 5 years ago, a friend of mine came over, and I was getting some weed, and he said he had some ketamine. Now, mind you, I'd never done it. I was under the impression it was just some rave party drug that was a quote. I even had a little quote I'd made up. I don't want a disassociative. I want a reassociative. I want to reassociate with people in life. I don't want to hide away from it, right? So I bought a gram of it, and it was expensive back then, like, I don't know, $100 or something for a gram. And I just held on to it. It was wet, slightly damp, because it had just been like dried from liquid, I guess. Anyway, eventually I just kind of forgot about it, and I just carried it around when I went to like fish, went out to the gorge, went to concerts, parties. Never did it. And people had always asked me about it. You still got that, K? But one day at a Fish concert in Seattle. I didn't have it with me or anything. I was just, we rented a room, and a good friend, came into the room after the show, and well, they were in there hanging out. They were staying with us. As they were leaving, they're like, "We're gonna go out and check out the town." They're like, "But we left you a little bit there," and it was a couple little lines of ketamine, and I tried it in combination with the LSD I'd taken earlier. Let me just say the experience was no less than transcendental, just amazingly epic. And I have had similar experiences under nitrous oxide, but people had told me it's similar, and it is, but also different. But let me just say this was a little over a year ago. And let's fast forward. A year passes. I was introduced to a guy who had ketamine, and I started on a ketamine therapy regimen and went into this full blown self experimentation phase. And I'm sorry I'm getting off track, but it's something I've been wanting to make a whole documentary about, a whole discussion about, but I will get to that later. I need to answer the rest of the questions, but the point being, ketamine ended up being the most amazing psychedelic I'd ever tried because of what it allowed me to do while still being fully functional in my mind. If I were to name a different one that I like just as much or even close, it would be 2CB. 2CB is absolutely amazing. I think it would be like, what, a 60 milligram dose or something, 80 milligram. I don't remember exactly how those ones are measured. I wanted to say that I was buying these 20 milligram packets from this guy at the Gorge, but if you ever have the chance to try it, it's something different. So 2CB or ketamine. That was a long answer. I should put that in the comments and just say, hey, by the way, skip this part. Number 3, the last question. Do you think we have free will, or is everything predestined by an awareness we can't fully know or understand, or both? I think both. That one's simple. And I can't explain because I don't know. I've done the thinking. It just goes nowhere. And so I'll leave that one. Much love to you as well. And I appreciate your comments. That's actually a great question. Oh, it looks like somebody already answered that one about, he quoted Carl Jung, and then I actually responded to that. But that's also Carl Jung's opinion. He is just another philosopher, right? So it doesn't mean that he's right necessarily. I love Carl Jung. He, for the last few years, has been a central theme of many of the podcasts I've listened to, like the Jungian theory and something like that. There's a few, I don't even know the names of them. One of my favorite ones is Jung something. God, what is I'll have to share it. The guy is so calm, cool, and collected. His name's Jason. He runs the podcast. And I've commented to him before and said, great show. He's responded. You know, he's very active and cares about people's opinions and views, and carries the views of Jung and many of his philosophies in a way that I think it's awesome, you know. So thanks for the question, my friend. I appreciate you. The next question, and it looks like I might have to do this in a couple of videos, right? Uh-oh, this one's from Dr. Tomato 9520. He said, hey, I got a couple political questions I would like to hear your thoughts on. Feel free to pick whichever feels more relevant to you. First, what are your thoughts on the growing movement of Christian nationalism? Also, do you think there's any way to bridge the cultural divide in America, especially on a personal level, when talking to people? I'm sorry about that. Let's just get this phlegm out. Especially when you're on a personal level, when talking to people who you disagree with but still want to be friends with or at least get along with. What about how to foster better local communities? I'm not sure if these are in your wheelhouse, just starting to watch this week. Those are absolutely in my wheelhouse, and I can only answer with I don't knows. First off, I want to start with the Christian nationalism. I think it is I don't want to say disease. I almost did. Shit, I just did. No, it's Christian nationalism is a misunderstanding, of what really matters. A lot of people believe this country was founded on Christian principles, and in a way, it was, but not necessarily by all Christians. Now, I know a lot of Freemasons were involved in the beginnings of this country, and people should know Freemasons can be any religion. It's not required to be a Christian. This is why so many Christians, Catholics, in particular, have always hated the Freemasons, because they have so much power because they allow everyone into their ranks. All you have to do is believe in a higher power, in a God. You don't have to bow down to, some bishop or priest and claim that they're the only authority on God. You can have your own viewpoints on these things. But all that aside, religion itself and nationalism. I mean, when you try to apply Christian nationalism, as those two words are just so, basically, it's a very toxic viewpoint. And I think that it doesn't allow for any sort of freedom of religion, which is in the Constitution. And there's not much else I can say about that other than a lot of the folks who, claim to be the most American and the most Christian are the least of both, in my opinion. And many people really thrive on just kind of like thinking they know better, but they don't, in my opinion. We need to allow people to do their own thing, basically. The next question on there was, what was it? Oh, do you think there's any way to bridge the cultural divide in America, especially on a personal level, when talking to people who you disagree with, but still want to be friends with or at least get along with? Yes, I do. I think there is a way. And I think that's a great question. I got glue on my finger or something. Maybe it's acid, something burning it from working in the house. I have a friend who's a conservative, for example, and I've mentioned this before. I don't want to sound like a broken record. I have a friend who's pretty conservative and a friend who's pretty liberal, and then we've had these group chats going for like over a year, and I'll kind of laugh when something happens, like, haha, oh, looks like they texted their war plans to a reporter, something that happened the other day. I figured it just goes, goes away. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to get fired over it because there's a double standard. I mentioned how, yeah, we're going to fire a bunch of government workers because they're not doing good enough work. But meanwhile, you're going to let the guy stay in government who accidentally added a reporter to a text thread about, bombing a bunch of Houthis. Like, that's considered classified to me, and I just thought it was really funny, like the excuses people made up about it. The other viewpoint was it doesn't matter because there was nothing there, and there's nothing to look at, and we just move on. That's why I think the cultural divide basically comes down to that. A lot of folks believe that anything that the administration says, the Trump administration, is correct, and they wouldn't dare doubt or question anything they do, at least not to them directly. Like, you'll never hear somebody go up and say, well, Mr. President, I think you need to fix this problem, or, this is your fault, without him just going off the handle and blaming, whether it's Obama, Biden, or Nixon, or fucking George Washington. He's always got somebody else to blame. And we know this, even if you're a big supporter, you realize Trump blames other people. He's never once said, I apologize, or I made a mistake. You don't hear those things from a narcissist. And that's fine. A lot of people are okay with that. They say, I don't care. He still can lead this country and fix our problems by, eliminating a lot of these issues. The thing that the Republicans don't see is that Donald Trump's playing them hardcore. The thing that the Democrats don't see is that they're playing themselves. Like, they're playing right into the playbook of Trump, like getting all upset about things. They had years to reminisce and to reflect on this after what happened last time. It's like, nope, playing the same game. It's humorous, but it's sad. How to foster better communities? And to answer your question, sorry, I got kind of off track there, but don't get upset with your friends about their political views. It's that simple. I know close people who disagree with me completely on certain topics. People who love Trump. I don't, and it's okay. I'm just like, it's okay. It's just politics. It's not life. You have to be able to talk to the other person before you start taking personal. If you want to avoid losing friends and family, then don't fucking buy into personal insults. Never make it about them. Never, ever, ever attack the person. If they say, "Oh, I love Trump," you're just like, "Oh, you're just ignorant. You must not have an education." Boom, you lost. You're an idiot. You're the idiot for doing that, for even saying that or suggesting it, for making another person feel dumb or inadequate. Now, they can be ignorant or uneducated on a topic. That's okay. Yes, if you find out a person doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, yeah, you'd be like, "You're wrong. You're wrong," and that's okay. But to literally call them dumb or you should have stayed in school or gone to college, that kind of shit is just dumb. It just makes you look stupid. So don't do it. But also, there is kind of this intelligentsia, this like, this arrogance among the very educated. They don't realize how limited their education is. Yeah, they went to college and they learned all kinds of shit about ancient history and Rome and they feel very refined. But in the real world, the shit hits the fan tomorrow. They don't know how to build a fire. It's not, whatever matters to you depends on your circumstance. And as long as you have a nice little group to fit into that agrees with you, then I think that the cultural divide's not going anywhere. It's just going to expand even further because there's profit to be made off of dividing people. And that's a fact. I think I answered the question. Also, do you still grow tobacco? No. I mean, yes, I do, but I haven't planted any yet this year. I'm going to, though. I'm trying to get my house fixed up and remodeled. I'm supposed to be chipping out concrete right now, but I wanted to come make this Q&A response before I forgot. So how long have I been making this video for? Because that's important. This camera, it's a GoPro, and it cuts off at like 30-something minutes. So I'm going to try to answer the rest of the questions here. What direction do you see our country? This is by Michael Muawad, 9575. What direction do you see our country going in the next decade? Doom and gloom or chillin'? I'd love to give you a long response to that one, and I don't have one. I think that I don't know, and I try not to predict. I believe doom and gloom is on the horizon one way or another, but I don't want to be the guy to say, haha, yeah, shit's going to hit the fan and everything's going to fall apart. Let me put it this way. I believe in the next 20 years or so, we are going to face a major crisis so extreme that even our predictions of our fears of global warming or an asteroid or, weather changes, economic collapse, none of it will matter. It will just pale in comparison to what actually happens. I don't know what that'll be yet. I mean, in the Northwest here, we're overdue for a major quake, but that's localized, right? That'll affect us, but we can still get help. If something happened worldwide, it would be a different story. Polar shift, 26,000 year cycle, I don't know. But I believe something's going down, and something's going to go down much bigger. But here's the thing. As far as the country, I don't chalk it up to saying, a lot of people would say, oh, Trump's in office, it's all doom. I don't see Trump as the problem, and I don't see Trump as going to end the country or elections or the world or anything else. If anything, he's the symbol of a destabilized and scared people. People who vote conservative tend to be more fearful of change and reluctant to change. And don't get triggered if you're one of those people. It's okay, because Democrats tend to just kind of favor any change. So, the loudest voices are the most scared quite often. So you hear these people just screaming and ranting about how fucked up things are, and you're like, well, Are they really that bad, or do we just read about it every day? You know, when I find out that most people in the morning, the first thing they do is pick up their phone and check their messages and texts and all these things. It's like, God damn, I don't do that even. Like, you know, I have access to my phone, but I try to get up, make a cup of coffee, take a shower, do whatever I'm going to do, and then maybe sit down and check things. But half the time I don't even get to my email. I deleted my Facebook, Twitter, you know, all the, you know, Instagram. I just don't use them because they're just time consuming. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are just busy answering all of it. And the voices that they're hearing are the loudest voices, who usually have the least to say. And the most scared people are fearful. And fear releases cortisol and causes bad judgment. Basically, a person who's in a state of panic or anxiety has bad judgment most of the time. It reminds me of a quote. I don't recall who said it originally, but Manly P. Hall quoted it a few times. The mind is the slayer of the real, that we worry about things that probably won't happen. And 99% of our fears never actually happen. You know, instead of just owning our fears, we just blame others for our problems. It's become very fashionable. Let me see how many questions I have left. I do have quite a few questions left, so I'm actually going to answer the rest of them on the next one. I think I answered those all. The next one's from Logic Only Zone. That'll be on the next video. Actually, no, I have time to actually answer Logic's on here too. Can you convince me to help a homeless person? Not just in terms of whether I should or shouldn't, but in terms of the why behind it. What moral principles or reasoning would you use to explain why I should value the person's life and offer them help? I'm interested in hearing your perspective on this one from a moral standpoint. And I did answer that one, but I said I would get more into depth on that. My response originally was my simple answer is that it's subjective. I don't believe a universal law of values, so it's up to the person. We work from the heart, and it tells us, if we listen, how to act, but it's not something that can be written down. And this isn't a great question, bro. I appreciate questions like that because moral conundrums are always difficult. People have asked me, you know, how do you feel about the trolley problem, things like that. And I would say you are not obligated to answer the homeless person. You are not obligated to give people money. I see people on the corner every day, and I don't give them a penny. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. Most of the time I don't, because I don't want to encourage it, because I know a lot of people I've met take advantage of it. You see them on the corner for years and years. And I'm like, sometimes it becomes kind of a fixture, but people see it as just like some tolerable thing. I'm like, I don't have a solution to the homeless crisis, but I do know a lot of these people do okay. They make enough. If I have extra, I might share. But I give in different ways. If I go, I'll tip a person more than average because my wife gets tipped as a waitress. And I have very complicated views on this, but I don't think you should be obligated to answer the question, can you convince me to help a homeless person? I can't. I really can't. I would say if your heart tells you to, you should. Maybe it's not for everybody, you know. Maybe we need some tough love from some people and also some support by others. And I think if we start to look at everything that way, we'll start to realize we're all a little pious. We're all a little priestly and, you know, saintly, I guess. But we all got a little devil inside too, and a little selfishness. That selfishness helps us survive, and you have to take care of yourself first before you can even remotely help others. So that makes sense. So that's my video for the first part. The next question is from Blessed, and I'm going to answer that at the first part of the next video in part 2, because this has been long already. Half an hour is about the limit, and there we are. So peace and love, and I will see you next time. Hopefully that answered the questions. Maybe I'll just ask AI to make the the markers in there. I bet if I do, it'll probably just do it automatically and tell me exactly what the whole video is about and list who I'm answering at what point. Weird times, man.